Hey everyone, and welcome to Canada's Blonde Moment. I'm your host, TJ, and today we're diving deep into a case that has fascinated, horrified, and left people speechless since 2018, the Chris Watts case. This is the story of a lovely family that has left a permanent mark on true crime history, and it continues to grip the public even in 2025. Today I'll be talking about Chris Watts, his life behind bars, the disturbing letters he's received, and if his mistress, Nicole Kessinger, had anything to do with the crime. We also have some new developments that have come to light. So buckle up because this is going to be a chilling yet detailed journey into one of the most unsettling cases of our time. Before we jump into the new details, let's take a few minutes to revisit the horrific crime that brought Chris Watts into the spotlight. Back on August 13th, 2018, Chris Watts did something unimaginable. In the early hours of the day, he strangled his pregnant wife, Shanann, in their home in Frederick, Colorado. She was 15 weeks pregnant with their son, Nico. After killing Shanann, Chris loaded her body into his truck along with their two daughters, Bella, who was 4, and Celeste, who was 3. He drove them to an oil field owned by his employer. There, he buried Shanann in a shallow grave and, in an act that still haunts many, he suffocated his 2 young daughters. He dumped their bodies into separate oil tanks. It's hard to even fathom the cruelty and coldness it would take to commit such an act. And what makes this case even more disturbing is what Chris did afterward. He played the role of a concerned husband and father, going on camera to plead for the safe return of his family. It didn't take long for his lies to start unraveling. Within days, he confessed to the murders, initially blaming Shanann for killing their daughters in a rage, a claim that was quickly debunked. In November 2018, Chris pled guilty to all charges to avoid the death penalty. He was sentenced to 5 life terms without the possibility of parole, and since then, he's been serving his sentence in Wisconsin. But as I'll explore today, that's not the end of his story. So, where is Chris Watts now, and what has his life been behind bars? Chris Watts is currently incarcerated at Dodge Correctional Institution in Wisconsin. His life in prison has been anything but ordinary. He's in protective custody, which means he's kept isolated from the general prison population for his own safety. Now, this isn't unusual for high profile inmates, especially those who have committed crimes as heinous as his. Most of his days are spent alone in his cell with minimal interaction with other inmates or prison staff. From what we know, Watts is considered a model inmate. He doesn't cause trouble and he follows all of the rules. But being a model prisoner doesn't erase what he did. In fact, his quiet and compliant behavior behind bars only adds to the unsettling nature of his personality. One thing that's interesting is that Chris has reportedly found religion during his time in prison. He's had to spend a lot of his time reading. He's had to spend a lot of his time reading the Bible and reflecting on his crimes. But can someone like Chris Watts truly repent? Can a person who has committed such monstrous acts ever find redemption? It's a question that many people grapple with. And while Chris may claim to have found peace in religion, for the families of his victims, the scars will never heal. Reports from prison officials indicate that he rarely participates in any prison programs, and he doesn't socialize much with other inmates. For the most part, his life is confined in the small cell that he calls home. Now, it's a far cry from the perfect family life he once portrayed on social media. And yet, even from behind bars, Chris Watts continues to draw attention from the outside world. This brings me to one of the most bizarre aspects of this case, the letters. Since his incarceration, Chris Watts has received countless letters from people, mostly women, who are fascinated by him. Some of these letters are from people who claim to feel sorry for him, while others express admiration or even love. It's hard to wrap your head around, but it's a phenomenon that we've seen in other notorious cases as well. People are drawn to killers like Watts, sometimes in ways that defy logic. Many of these women believe that they see something in Chris that others don't. They talk about how he's remorseful, how they think he's changed, and some have even gone as far as saying that they want to marry him. There are reports of women sending him money and gifts, despite knowing full well what he did. Chris, for his part, has responded to some of these letters, though he's said to be selective about who he replies to. One letter that stands out was from a woman who told Chris she forgave him for everything he had done. She even went on to say that she believed his daughters, Bella and Celeste, would forgive him too. That level of denial is hard to comprehend. Forgiveness is one thing, but to claim that his victims, his own children, would forgive him is a step too far for most people. The question is, why are people so fascinated with Chris Watts? Part of it may be the contrast between the man he presented himself to be and the monster he turned out to be. On the surface, Chris appeared to be the perfect family man. He had a good job, a beautiful wife, and two adorable daughters. But beneath that facade was something much darker. The fact that someone who seemed so ordinary could commit such a horrific act is what continues to captivate people. Another figure in this story that people are still talking about in 2025 is Nicole Kessinger, Chris Watts' mistress at the time of the murders. So, Nicole has been a controversial figure from the start. While she was never charged with any crime, many people believe that she played a role in what happened, even if it was indirect. Nicole went into hiding shortly after the case broke and hasn't made any public statement since. But the internet has kept her name alive. There are countless theories about her involvement, with some suggesting that she knew more than she let on. Others speculate that her relationship with Chris was a catalyst for the murders, that Chris killed his family because he wanted to start a new life with Nicole. Now, so far, there's no concrete evidence to suggest that Nicole had any direct involvement in the murders. Chris himself has claimed that she had nothing to do with it, and there's been no indication from law enforcement that she was involved. However, the public's interest in her hasn't waned. In fact, some online communities are still actively searching for clues that might connect her to the crime. One thing is clear: Nicole Kessinger will forever be linked to Chris Watts, whether she likes it or not. She has become a symbol in this case, and for many people, the question of her involvement remains unanswered. But as of today, there's been no new information to suggest that Nicole Kessinger played a direct role in the actual murders. The Chris Watts case is one that will likely continue to fascinate people for years to come. It's not just about the murders, it's about what those murders represent. Chris Watts was the ultimate family man, at least on the surface. He had the picture perfect life, but beneath that facade was a man capable of the unimaginable. This case raises so many questions about human nature, about what drives someone to commit such an atrocity, and about how we, as a society, respond to these kinds of cases. Why are we so fascinated by them? Why do we keep coming back to stories like Chris Watts? Part of it is the sheer horror of the crime. Family killings are rare, but when they happen, they shake us to the core. They make us question how well we really know the people around us. Another reason this case remains in the public eye is because of the media. The Netflix documentary American Murder: The Family Next Door brought this case back into the spotlight in 2020. and it introduced it to an entirely new audience. Since then, there's been a steady stream of podcasts, documentaries, and articles exploring every aspect of the case. And as we've seen, even in 2025, people are still talking about Chris Watts.
Yeah, it was like I don't want to like trying to think of the last things we were talking about, but it was like I love you anymore, and then she's like you're never gonna see the kiss.
Oh,
Of it.
that's perfect, Chris. That's exactly what we need. Okay. And I know it's hard to walk through that again, but that's exactly it. So then, as soon as she started talking like that, then it was on. Okay.
But it was you saying that you didn't love her. Is that right? Okay.
And her saying, "You're never going to see the kids." Okay. I can imagine how that made you feel. Sorry.
It didn't warrant what it did.
Yeah. And then the fact that she didn't scratch at you or anything, is that just because it was so powerful?
I don't think it. I mean, it didn't feel like I've never done that before. Put my hands around anybody before, so I don't even know what kind of force I was putting on her neck.
Okay.
Like I said, 2 to 4 minutes. I don't know if that was 2 to 4 minutes.
Did you cover her face at all during that time?
Both hands on the neck. Okay. And so if it's done right, I mean, that can be a matter of seconds before someone on their carotid loses oxygen to their brain and it's out, right? Did it seem like it was that quick or? Okay. Maybe a minute, maybe 2. Okay. Screaming? Okay. All right. Did you see eyes go bloodshot or anything like that? Okay. Okay. And
You
then,
kept talking about the mascara. Did you see mascara on her face?
That looked like it was like that's what I attributed it to.
Was she crying? Is that why? At what point did she start crying?
When I'm talking about the relationship about not being compatible. And when she's talking about there's somebody else, that's where she started crying. That's what I thought, it was mascara. I didn't know if it was it.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Was there a pillow or something you were wanting to ask them?
Yeah, so was there ever at any time a pillow or the sheet or anything involved in like that on the face specifically? No?
Not like the sheet that you kind of wrapped around to get downstairs.
The one that was at the site. And then the other sheets, they were in the trash. At what point did you put those in there?
I think that was
Obviously after I was in the house.
yeah. I think it was probably the next day or so. I think I don't know. I'm not sure like what happened. This is hard to talk about. Like when
Yeah.
strangle somebody, I don't like. Sometimes I guess they use the bathroom, so it's like I think that's one of the major reasons why. Because I think that had happened.
oh, okay.
You said she was sleeping face down at one point? Was her face in the pillow or was it turned to the side or how did that?
Kind of like on the side. She's kind of like a side sleeper, but she was more down than usual.
Okay.
But then she rolled completely on her back when you started talking to her?
Okay. Now, as hard as that was,
So, where does that leave us? Well, Chris Watts is still serving his life sentences in Wisconsin, and as of today, there hasn't been any new major developments in his case. He remains a subject of fascination for many, and the letters he receives from admirers are a disturbing reminder of how many people are drawn to darkness. And as for Nicole Kessinger, her involvement in the case remains a topic of debate, though there's been no evidence to suggest she had anything to do with the murders. The Watts family murders are a tragic reminder that we really just don't know who we live with, who we're related to, who our neighbors are. That though life might look picture perfect for some, we don't really know what's going on behind closed doors. I'm TJ. Thanks for watching Canada's Blonde Moment. Take care of yourselves, and guys, take care of each other. Until next time.